Because she's insane, Rachel Maddow thinks that Donald Trump is going to put her in an internment camp. That's right, because this is the world that these people live in. Rachel, no, I'm sorry. You're just not that important. Now, as for the people in government who have committed crimes, waging hoaxes on the American people, they will be investigated. They will be criminally charged and they'll go to jail if it can be proven that any of these individuals committed crimes. Now, I can't speak for Trump, what Trump wants to do, but the idea that he is going to be an iron fist dictator is unfortunately for all of his most ardent supporters just not true. He ain't going to do it. I'm sure there are many people who are rooting and cheering that Rachel Maddow go to a camp. Yeah, it's not going to happen. And I got this clip from Andrew Schultz's show with Michael Malice to show you, and we'll go over this. Fox News reports MSNBC's Rachel Maddow is worried she'll be put in one of Trump's massive camps. I'm worried about me. I don't know if the clip that they have on the Fox News article is the actual clip where she said it. MSNBC host Rachel Maddow is worried Trump will throw her in jail or even some sort of camp for high-profile liberals. These people are insane. Can you look, if you got a liberal family member, can you tell them they're nuts? Okay, that this is insanity. Maddow, who has largely built a program around passionate criticism of Trump for years, famously pushed since debunked theories tying the former president to Russia. Now she's concerned Trump, the presumptive GOP nominee, will weaponize the government and throw his media critics in jail if he defeats Biden in November. I'm worried about the country broadly. If we put someone in power who is openly avowing that he plans to build camps to hold millions of people and to root out what he's described as subhuman terms as enemies from within. Again, history is helpful here. He's not joking when he says this stuff. And we've seen what happens when people take power proclaiming that kind of agenda. What? I talked to President Trump and I said, how do you deport millions of people? He goes, local police. That's it? That ain't no camp. That's local. What? I got to be honest. Local police are going to take you a long time to get the job done. So Trump's certainly not coming out and saying outright he's going to build camps or do any of these things. For that matter, she says in history, adding that Trump would also go after his political rivals. For that matter, what convinces you that these massive camps he's planning are only for migrants? I'm worried about me, but only as much as I'm worried about all of us. Oh, heavens, Rachel Maddow. Oh, she's insane. CNN reporters did not push back on this point, in the print QA, and had set Maddow up to give an explosive answer by initially asking, Trump and his allies are openly talking about weaponizing the government to seek revenge against critics in media. You were one of his most notable critics on television. Are you worried that you could be a target? The Trump campaign did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Maddow famously cut the Rachel Maddow show to once a week in 2022 to pursue other projects, despite her enormous salary, which has been reported to be roughly $30 million per year. Her interview with CNN was meant to promote one of the other projects, a podcast. Earlier this year, Maddow criticized her own network for airing Trump's victory speech on Super Tuesday and claimed it was irresponsible to broadcast. She asked where she stands on whether the news should broadcast Trump live. Quote, I don't think there's any simple, hard and fast rule that makes these decisions easy. You take things case by case, situation by situation, lie by lie. I do think it's important to constantly revisit these decisions in a rigorous way, guarding in particular against letting ourselves be used for any purpose other than our own journalistic mission, Maddow told CNN. She expressed concern that Trump would be a dictator if elected. I got news for everybody. Michael Malice sums it up. I do have some disagreements, but I'll play this segment for you.
How do you feel about Trump? I know you're not necessarily a fan. Can you expound on why?
It's really kind of funny. So what do you call someone who thinks Trump is dumb, doesn't have the temperament to be president, and kind of sucked as when he was in the Oval Office? A Trump supporter. Right?
That's a good one.
Because unless you think he's the worst thing to ever happen to America, you're a Trump supporter. Those are the two choices.
That's right. Basically, if someone comes out and you're like, you know, Trump hired some bad people, but he did a lot of good things. I think overall it was like I say net positive. I'm like, he's got character defects. He's a lewd old man. He was a lewd young man. They'll be like, why are you a Trump supporter? And it's like, this is what ultimately ends up with someone like me being like, you know what? I'm in for it. Because what are your choices, right?
And if you criticize him in any way, you have TDS. Like this is the fucking retarded binary. I'm sorry.
Trump
This kind of binary we have where you either have TDS or you're a Trump supporter. It's
Michael, that's not correct. I criticize Trump for a lot of things. We on this show will have Dave Smith, Clint Russell. Clint Russell goes off on Trump, Luke Rudkowski, but even they're now saying they're going to vote for Trump. So I agree that the TDS people view anyone without TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, as being a Trump supporter. I can sit here all day and night and talk about Trump obfuscating drone strike numbers, removing that transparency. Not a good thing. There are things to criticize. 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria, commando raids in Yemen. We talk about these things all the time. Foreign policy, of course, is one of the most important things to me. So I talk about those issues. But we can certainly criticize Trump. And Trump supporters don't think I have TDS because I say these things.
Yes, sir.
Trump derangement syndrome.
Okay.
Like where it's just like, oh my God,
You hate everything Trump.
I'm going to wear a pussy on my head and show him. I think he's done a great job at radicalizing people. I think he's done a great job at exposing the evil of the corporate press. That was one of his greatest accomplishments. But if people think that Trump's going to save them, like they're crazy. And
I'll clarify that. If you think that Donald Trump is going to descend from the heavens and solve all your problems, you're wrong. But I think what people like me and many people like you watching the show or Timcast IRL think is that Trump is just turning the notch back in the right direction. We got withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, Biden screwed it up, but Donald Trump actually working towards peace. I had libertarians, Libertarian Convention saying, you know what, that was one of the greatest things he's done, or any president's done in a long time. We are cranking the notch back. Trump is an avatar for the rage that people in this country have. There are certainly people, and I agree with Michael to this extent, I think it is Trump who will save them. These people aren't turning out for local elections. They're not turning out for congressional elections. How did Brandon Herrera lose in Texas's, I think it's 32nd? 32nd? Let me make sure I have that one right. Because that was big. TX, was it 32? 23rd. I mixed the numbers up. I thought it was one of the two. Brandon Herrera ran in Texas's 23rd district. This guy should have won. He lost by only a couple hundred votes. This I agree with. But I want to make sure I'm clarifying. I don't know if I'm disagreeing with Mouse. I think he probably would agree with me. Reasonable people who think voting for Trump is a move in the right direction, even if it's a small move, that makes sense. Thinking he solves all the problems, it ain't going to be the case.
Do you think he's well-intentioned?
No.
Okay.
Who thinks he's well-intentioned?
I just wanted to
I think he loves America, but he's looking out for number one. More power to him.
Well, how is that not well-intentioned? Does Donald Trump want to hurt the United States? No. He loves this country, but he is looking out for himself. It is a egocentric perspective. Everyone I've met basically says that Donald Trump cares about Trump and that his worldview is crafted around his experiences more so than many other people. But he will do good for you, and he is taking a hit from this.
But we saw who he staffed. Like this idea that Trump at age, what was it, 78? 77 is like learning from his mistakes. The fuck? Like at what point do you stop getting do-overs? Like no one made him hire John Bolton. He hired Omarosa. Explain, like this woman on his own show, her whole shtick was like being a snake.
Let me say this, right? Because he goes on and talks about Omarosa and how he shouldn't have hired her. Donald Trump is losing a lot by running for president. I don't know how you overlook that. Malice is right about a lot, but Donald Trump could have just bowed out after the 2020 race, cut a deal with the deep state and said, I'm not going to run. Leave me and my family alone. I just want to be rich and successful and famous. And they would have rehabilitated his image, just like they did with George W. Bush. Trump instead said, I'm going to war with you. And people like it.
Name was spent on 12 years firing and hiring the right people. So how are you fucking hiring and firing John Bolton? What are you talking about?
Because Sheldon Adelson agreed to help Donald Trump under that pretext. And now Miriam Adelson is pledging $100 million to Trump winning in this election in November, so long as he works towards the annexation of the West Bank into Israel. Insane. And so you can expect some pretty bad things from a new Trump administration. And still, I do not sit here and claim that Donald Trump will be bequeathing upon us a 100% victory, a 90%, an 80%, a 70, a 60, a 55. Hey, maybe it's 51%. That's called net positive. With Donald Trump as president, there's division. But the division already existed. The corporate press goes insane. Trump exposed them. Trump works for the American economy, works to secure our borders. Best foreign policy of my lifetime. Could it have been better? Absolutely. So Michael criticizes the hiring of John Bolton. We all agree that was a huge mistake. But Donald Trump ultimately gets rid of the guy, starts working towards these peace agreements. Now, how do you overlook all that stuff? Donald Trump is not the savior, but he's a move in the right direction. It is. Dave Rubin had a clip about this. It's undeniable. Under the Republicans, things would be better. That's it. That's all that matters. Would some things be worse? Yeah, but it would be net positive. Rampant crime in these big cities. The economy in the gutter. Joe Biden and whoever is behind him, they are running things into the ground. Afghanistan was an abject catastrophe. So what do? Do you just don't vote for any of them?
So the other side, it could be that at this point, like, who wants to work for this guy? Because as soon as I leave, he goes on Twitter and calls me a fucking idiot, right?
So then nobody's willing to step up.
Except for the crazies.
So
but the crazies are the ones who get things done because the crazies don't give a fuck.
And as long as the crazies are crazy like Bannon, right? Where they're like, we're coming, we're changing the system, we're doing it. And what I mean by crazy is willing to sacrifice everything to do what has to be done. That's what he's saying. They don't care. I don't see Rachel Maddow ending up in a camp. I think it'll be much more tame than that, but a move in the right direction. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.